Welcome to New York's #2 sports show. The Rangers are shut out again for the 8th time this season. This one at the hands of the New York Islanders. Final score 2-0. I was at this game. It's been my third game this season. One at Toronto, one at Madison Square Garden against the Ducks and Kreider's return. And now this game at UBS Arena, my first time at UBS Arena. And it's pretty much been the same song and dance. Which really has been in general this way, where the Rangers don't score goals. This is now the 8th time, like I said, they've been shut out. 15th time that they've had one goal or less out of 40 games. So, again, it's pretty easy to figure out. I mean, basically, 20% of the games that they've played, they have been shut out, which is just absolutely insane. And then, from there, 3 out of every 8 games that they play, they've scored one goal or less. So, it is what it is. This is not, a talented hockey team, and this is what you get. Rangers basically fell asleep for the first 10 minutes of the game. Islanders scored less than a minute in. That's all she wrote. I mean, Islanders had 5 power plays. Rangers killed off all 5. I mean, a lot of thanks to Igor Shesterkin, who was really good in this game. And the Rangers had 3 power plays. 2 of the 3 occur with 5 minutes left in the game. Rangers have basically a power play with 5 minutes left, 3 minutes left. And then, so it's 6-on-4 for a little bit, 6-on-5 to the end. They can't tie the game up. So as much as the Rangers have been better as far as comeback ability late in games, more so at home, less so on the road. Now, this was a game that was filled with Ranger fans. So if you want to make the joke, it's fair that the Rangers, take Buffalo aside, in the tri-state area, their Madison Square Garden struggles kind of extend over to UBS Arena. And it's amazing, too, because you look at a lot of these games they've been shut out. Most of them, to my recollection, they were losing 1-0. I mean, even the Nashville game that wasn't a shutout, they were down 1-0. Nashville gets an empty net goal, and the Rangers scored 1 goal late with 30 seconds left. Like, that's the frustrating thing, is that they're not really getting destroyed on the scoreboard in these games. It's 1-0 games. I mean, Ranger games, for the most part, are low scoring. And usually the Rangers are on the bad side of it. And it's just incredible. It ties, I believe, a team record. We had 40 games in the season for shutout losses. Not shutouts, 0-0 ties. Shutout losses at 8. And I think the last time was like the mid-50s. 1954 might have been the last season, something like that. So it's historical stuff. Again, like, lack of effort at times is a problem with this team, but it's not great, and it bothers me. And they really came out flat, and the Islanders were the better team. And again, that was the difference. But it's more about just the personnel. And I mean, and really, to me, the top players are the ones that deserve the most blame. Sure, it'd be easy, and you can if you want. It's fair game all the way around, right? You want to blame some of the bottom 6 players and some of the defensemen, but really, when it comes down to it, the Rangers' core is not anywhere near good enough. And to make things worse, again, Adam Fox was out again. I think he'll be back soon. But that hurts a lot. And you've seen that, right? At the beginning, it was all right. They were able to kind of piece it together. Adam Fox not being lined up is not a good thing for this Ranger team. Anyone that thought otherwise, I don't know what to tell you. It's not good at all. To put Braden Schneider on the number 1 pair, now, Scott Morrow gets big-time minutes. That's just not good at all. And JT Miller is out as well. And look, JT Miller, I've been critical of him. He was turning things around a little bit, to be fair, but JT Miller, he's out. And so, it's just, you're going to have a hard time for a team that was already starving for offense. The lineup for the Rangers was the same as last game, meaning that no surprise, Vakanainen was the healthy scratch on defense. And then Connor Sherry and Brett Berard were the scratches forward-wise. And for Berard, he had been called up. He hasn't actually played, in an NHL game in a little bit of time. Right, I don't know the exact game count, but Sherry's more of the interesting thing. I guess they figured because they won last game, they would stick with it. But I wasn't sure. I thought, hey, I always am of the belief that, Brendan Hoffman's always close to being taken out of the lineup. And the fact of the matter is, and a lot of this, I guess, had to do with a lot of penalties in the third period and whatnot, but another game where Brendan Hoffman and Matt Rempe did not play much at all. I mean, we're talking about 5 minutes and 45 seconds apiece for Rempe and Offman. 7 shifts for Rempe, 8 shifts for Offman. So again, that gives you a little bit of indication. Forgetting about, for a second here, just like wanting to play young players, right? I'm not even going there, right? Because look, it probably is more useful to just see what Brennan Hoffman can do and Matt Rempe than Connor Sherry. But for the sake of just trying to read between the lines, don't be surprised if Connor Sherry is back is back in next game. But it's all, again, talk like that all feels kind of like a waste of time. But look, we're here for it, and we're gonna, kind of dissect it as best we can. But it boils down to, again, top players not getting it done when they need to, and it's a pretty simplistic game to kind of break down here. For the Islanders, Bo Horvat does return, so big sort of boost for the Islanders. David Riddick has been very good for the New York Islanders. Sorokin was out, and to me, that wasn't a big deal, right? Like, to me, not to take anything away from the Islanders, and they're dealing with injuries themselves. It's not as if they're completely healthy, right? I mean, Alexander Romanov out for a long time, Kyle Palmieri as well. I may be forgetting another player possibly of significance. But, again, I don't view, no disrespect to Sorokin, who, when the Islanders shut the Rangers the first time, I believe it was Sorokin that was in net there on November 8th at Madison Square Garden. But David Riddick did the job. Look, I don't think he was overly tested, but he did well. Obviously getting the shutout. For the Rangers, defensive pairings were, as you'd expect, in the same. As far as the forward units, the same as last game. However, kind of what we've seen, like in the third period, you kind of see Cooley move from the lava line to the Trocheck line. Brodzinski moves down. So a little bit of shuffling within the second and third lines, but it's been consistent as far as the fourth, the Carrick line and the Zibanejad line have stayed consistent. And look, we could go up and down the lineup, and me being at the game, it gives a little bit of different perspective. I feel like, I was sitting in a spot where I was actually close to where the Rangers were shooting first and third period. So for those situations, I had a good sort of sense of it. But it's tough with the way it is with UBS. It's a little bit, they have a little bit too low, as far as, it was in row 8. And even that, like, you just don't get a great vantage point from the other side. Whereas I feel like in Madison Square Garden, things are a little bit just elevated. And it gives you maybe not the perfect sight lines, but a little bit better. So kind of had to look up at the screen a little bit when it was in the other end, which is where actually the Anders Lee goal was, which is where the Will Cooley no goal in the second period was. But yeah, just, I guess, some quick thoughts individually. Look, it speaks for itself, and I'll go through the defenseman first. Carson Soucy makes a terrible turnover to start it out, and that's the difference, right? And Carson Soucy, ironically, has a penalty shot chance in the third period. He is maybe the last player, one of the last players Rangers who'd won that situation, and the attempt was just as bad as you'd expect it to be, just a simple wrist shot low. I would have tried anything else but that, just to maybe throw Riddick off a bit. But Braden Schneider was fumbling the puck. I know he does that a lot, but Braden Schneider, like, look, get him back on that third pair. It's just, it suits him better. I'm not saying it's been an absolute total nightmare, but man, Gavrikov Fox was just such a positive for this team, and it just made everything better the rest of the way through. And so, and I feel like Gavrikov, I thought Gavrikov got better as the game went on. I thought he had a rough start as well, Vladislav Gavrikov. So, yeah, like, you didn't see, I mean, the way it kind of ended up being, maybe because they were more in trail mode and penalties, you didn't see a whole lot of like Soucy Borgen, but again, it's hard to fully judge it with all those penalties, to be honest. As far as the forwards go, and again, that's a lot of special teams involvement too. Look, I thought that first line was not good enough. It wasn't. Like Zibanejad, I'll give him this, and the bar is set low. He works hard. He really, really does. Like, again, he's not as good as he was a few years ago. It's not a good thing. The contract's not good. But I continue to say, hey, this is a season where the effort is clearly there. I did not like Panarin's game. He had opportunities that were missed, either shot wide or he had that breakaway that just wasn't really a great attempt. So Panarin, obviously, by far the most talented guy on the team, Panarin. I didn't like his game. Lafreniere, basically a no-show. Alexis Lafreniere takes a penalty. Just, it is what it is with Lafreniere. And it's really sad and unfortunate. And yet, he, gets to play in pretty good positions. I mean, in terms of on that line he plays on, and his ice time wasn't that high tonight, given, again, the Rangers being on the PK a lot, him taking a penalty himself, well, that wouldn't have mattered because he wouldn't have been on the PK. So his ice time was a little bit down, but again, for no other reason than just the flow and the game script of the game. What else? Taylor Radish stinks. I mean, we know this. He had opportunities that were flubbed and missed. And, again, just this is not a guy that you want playing, almost 15 minutes, being your top nine. It's just not good. Vincent Trocheck losing key faceoffs left and goddamn right at the end of the game. And I didn't like Trocheck's game at all. I think Vincent Trocheck is a guy that really does fly under the radar, says a lot of the things you want to hear, but what are you actually doing? Johnny Brodzinski, I didn't think Brodzinski wasn't great, to be honest. And he's always going to be at risk to be a healthy scratch, even though I think that he's better than some of the other options. But Johnny Brodzinski didn't think he had a good game. Noah Laba's always in the fight. Like, he's limited offensively. There's no question. But Laba, again, I like, one of the few positives of the season. But again, I don't know what the upside is on Noah Laba, to be fair. Will Cooley, very involved for good and bad, I guess is what I'd say for Cooley. Really misses it open. It's not a wide open net, but at the end of the game, shot it way wide and high. Again, he's not the most talented. He almost scored though, which we'll talk about. And yeah, from there, look, Perreault, he was quiet. I think he's someone that you're kind of caught in between. You want him to play with the best players, but with that, you get the toughest matchups. So I think they're trying to kind of put him in a little second or third line spot, hoping that there's enough talent with him, which there isn't. And he's not going up against the toughest, oppositions. But anyway, let's get into it. We've already kind of touched on a bunch here, but, first period, again, another situation with the Rangers, no shots on goal through 10 minutes. I mean, there's so many times that happens. They were not good. They were asleep at the wheel. And that really was the difference. So 58 seconds in, Anders Lee, his 10th goal of the season, unassisted. Just a horrible turnover by Carson Soucy behind the net. I don't know what the hell he was thinking there. Needed to be smarter there. Had a little bit of time to just go around the boards, do the save play. He just turns over right in front of Matt Barzal. Shesterkin makes the initial save, and then Lee is able to score blocker side on the rebound. Igor was good in this game. Really sharp, made a lot of good saves. Like this one, look, can't blame him on that one either. It's Lee in height. Just a bad play by Carson Soucy. And he had a chance to make up for it in the penalty shot later and didn't do so. So one of the Islanders there. It was your one non-internet goal of the game. At 3:51, Gavrikov trips Barzal. They kill that one off. And look, I thought the Rangers, with 6-7 minutes left in the period, found their game a little bit, for whatever that is exactly, but they did. Had some opportunities. There was a Trocheck chance right as the buzzer expired, at the end of the first period. But nothing is crisp with this team. They can't make simple passes. They can't, in the offensive zone, it's like they don't know what they're doing. It's a really hard watch. I think most fans would attest this. It is and they're going to be playing these types of games, low scoring, close, tight. And when you don't have the ability to score, you're going to lose those games like you do here. It's not the Islanders were that impressive in this game. I mean, the difference really was the first, I'd say 10 minutes really was. And then from there, I would say it was about even, you could kind of make your case either way, but at the end of the day, the Rangers need to play their A game to win games. As I've said, when they don't play their A game, they're not going to win. And what's also been very evident, and some of this is a little bit of randomness, but I think there's also something to it. When the Rangers score first, they win almost all the time. When they don't score first, they almost lose all the time. And I'm not speaking to necessarily their lack of, because last year I had a problem with it in terms of their comeback ability. It's not about that. It's just when a team's, as a lead, they are going to play, especially as we go to the second and third period, they're going to, take the middle of the ice away. And again, the Rangers can't break through that, right? So it's not a lack of effort. It's just they are going to have a tougher time, especially on the road, when, the home team gets the last change to win those matchups. And they're not doing it. So we go to the second, Islanders up 1-0. And at 4:56, Lafreniere holds the stick of Jonathan Drouin. Lafreniere, can you stay on your feet? Can that fall down every 5 seconds? I mean, just the simplest of shit he can't do. And he holds the signature ramp, but the Rangers kill it off. And I'm not gonna get into specifics as far as the 5 kills. There were some posts hit, I think, a little bit here. There were some good Shesterkin saves, but also credit needs to be given to the Rangers penalty kill. Zibanejad being one of them. I feel like he made some good plays, but yeah, it was mainly Trocheck Cooley as the forward duo, as well as Zibanejad and Carrick for the most part. Islanders had some pretty good zone time. I wouldn't view it as like a horrible 0 for 5, but 0 for 5 is 0 for 5. Brady Schneider at 11:09 hooks Max Shabanov. And look, like I said, Schneider had his struggles in this game. Um, but the Rangers cooled off. And then soon thereafter, Pelech interferes with Artemi Panarin at 13:56, but the Rangers don't score on their power play. Although that was the time when Will Cooley, probably about halfway through that power play, maybe a little bit before that, it appeared as if he scored. And, from where I was, originally I thought it was a goal. But when you look at the replay, it wasn't. It goes off the crossbar and it goes down short of the line. That's what kind of sucks as far as the luck is concerned, where there was a chance, we've seen it before, where maybe that goes off the bar and it goes past the line. Most times it doesn't, but I can think of times when it certainly has in Ranger history as well. But no goal, no dispute there. The right call, and the Rangers don't score on the power play. We go to the third period, and it's one of the Islanders. Then there are a lot of penalties that happen. Some probably were good calls, some not so much. Tony DeAngelo and Noah Laba get matching minors at 149, so it's 4-on-4 for a bit. Of course, no goals scored there. At 7:58, I had a problem with this call. Will Cooley is called for goalie interference. Now, there was a collision, of course, behind the net between Riddick and Cooley. But honestly, Riddick, there was a bit of embellishment. That's the first thing I'll say. And look, where is Cooley supposed to go? He really wasn't that forceful. And this is someone that's been very critical of Will Cooley in terms of taking, maybe not the smartest of penalties in the offensive zone and stuff like that. I honestly objectively felt like hey, I know if you're ref, you feel like you have to call something because it is such a big collision, but honestly, it wasn't that bad in the part of Cooley. I think you let that one go in that situation. Then at 9:18, during the penalty kill, Callum Ritchie slashes Carson Soucy for a penalty shot. And I'm thinking there, damn, I'd probably prefer a power play. Now, remember, it still would have been 4-on-4 for a bit. Also, the Ranger power play isn't that good. But Carson Soucy being the guy, really, you couldn't ask for it to be much worse. If you had a bottom 3, let's call it bottom 3, to be fair. He's got to be in the bottom 3 of the current lineup. To have someone take a penalty shot, maybe to be fair, no better than bottom 5. And it's just an easy, simple wrist shot that Riddick stops. At 12:35, Trocheck holds Ryan Pulock. And I thought this was the right call. And Trocheck was complaining. I thought it just a bad penalty by Vincent Trocheck. We see it way too often. And the ironic thing is Ryan, the former number 16, second line center, Ryan Strome, Ranger fans, were up in arms with all of the penalties that he would take. And Vincent Trocheck, look, it's a lot of the same. It really, really is. Just ill-advised, not smart, overly aggressive penalties when you just don't need it. But they kill that off. And then I felt like this one, I got to get a better look on it. This one felt like not a great call either. At 14:41, Ritchie trips Gavrikov. And the Ranger power play does not score. And it's Scott Moore on the point. It's the same crew. It's Cooley at net front, who isn't that great at net front, even though I know he was a net front goal. He almost scored that goal in the second, but still. You just don't have better options, is really what it comes down to. Morrow included, right? I mean, it's a mess, quite frankly. And then after that's killed off, this one I thought was the right call. Bo Horvat trips Noah Laba at 16:59. So with 3 minutes left, Rangers got another power play. And they don't score on it. The chances are not good enough. Was there zone time? Sure, there was. But not anywhere near good enough. And we've seen it a lot, right? Where the Rangers have had some key power plays. Hell, even the Nashville game, where they had a late power play down by 1 on the road, and they just can't get it done. And so there was 6-on-4 for a little bit of time as the Rangers, as Shesterkin was pulled. Again, Cooley kind of had a decent opportunity, I felt, that went way wide. And eventually, as this happened a lot, Rangers got to lead the league, or come close to, in terms of empty net goals against. Simon Holmstrom, 8th goal of the season unassisted at 19:43. Islanders win 2-0. They shut the Rangers out again this year. So 2 games, no goals to the Rangers against the Islanders. And the Rangers dropped to 19, 17, and 4. And look, they are just trying to hang on. 1 game away from the halfway point of the season. And look, the schedule, it's tough here, right? I mean, at Carolina coming up, who the Rangers did beat about a month ago, surprisingly enough. Then they go to Washington, a team that they just beat in Washington. And I don't know. And then it's the Winter Classic in Florida. Like, I keep on waiting for the stretch of time where it gets to a point where it's too much to overcome. It has not reached that point yet. But let's trust our eyes here. This is not a playoff team. What I'm saying right now is more taking that aside and just looking at it more from a mathematical standpoint. And the math isn't on the Rangers side either. But, like, I don't know. The Rangers have surprised me at times where they'll kind of throw these wins in there where it's like, oh, that's fairly impressive. But I don't know. I mean, the Rangers, could they go to Carolina and beat them again? I guess. But Carolina is one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference, at least when you think about it from a regular season standpoint. I mean, literally they are. I mean, they're 23-11-3. That is the best record in the Eastern Conference. So that's not going to be easy. Like I said, at Washington, to go in there and beat them twice in Washington in about a week span, that won't be easy. And I just think the Winter Classic against the Panthers, like the Panthers, they rise up in, big games. And I think that, it's obviously not as big as a playoff game or a late season game, but expect the Panthers to be, up and ready for that one. And they're right in the thick of the playoff race. So all I'm saying is that the Rangers have thrown wins in there, but there may come a time when a losing streak happens. And when that does happen, really at that point is when, I don't know, trades could happen in January as far as selling off. Don't rule it out. Could it happen right before the trade deadline? Sure, maybe. But I think the first time when it's really possible is in January. February is going to be basically dead with the Olympics happening. So don't expect really any activity there, right? Is there pockets early and late that can happen? Sure, of course there is. But I think this is a very pivotal time for the Rangers. Either they're going to win enough to kind of hang around. I'm not sure how good that is. Or, they may make the decision very clear. It should be easy anyway. But, just very frustrating going to some of these games. I've been to many. I've been to 3. But again, the only goals I saw was a goal by, Juuso Parssinen and Matthew Robertson. That's it. And the funny thing is, in the case of the Robertson goal, that was one that originally was not a goal and then changed to a goal. So you couldn't even really get a real celebration. And then in this game, Will Cooley, the opposite happens. You think it's a goal, but it's not. So it's just been frustrating. And the Rangers get shut out again. 8th time this season they've been shut out in only their 40th game of the season. Unbelievable stuff. They lose to the Islanders. Final score 2-0. And now they will continue their road trip. They will head to Carolina to take on the Hurricanes.